Hello. I wonder, how are you feeling at the moment? On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy and contented are you feeling today? A couple of years ago I came across a great acronym. When someone tells you they're feeling fine, what they might mean is feelings inside not expressed. F-I-N-E. We say we're fine, but inside it's very different. And at the moment that is of course the case for a lot of people. There's frustration at all the restrictions we live under. There's anxiety, maybe about our own health, maybe about the future. You might be feeling anything but fine. One of the great things about the Psalms is that they deal with the real life emotions we go through. They were written by people who share our experiences, even our difficult experiences. And they're not afraid to be honest about it. There's no polite hiding behind a mask in the Psalms. There's no pretending to be fine. And today I'd like to look at a psalm by someone who is in that position. It's Psalm 55. Let me read part of it now. Listen to my prayer, O God. Do not ignore my plea. Hear me and answer me. My thoughts trouble me, and I'm distraught because of what the enemy is saying, because of the threats of the wicked, for they bring down suffering on me and assail me in their anger. My heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen on me. Fear and trembling have beset me. Horror has overwhelmed me. I said, oh, that I had the wings of a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. I would flee far away and stay in the desert. I would hurry to my place of shelter, far from the tempest and storm. And then on to verse 16. As for me, I call to God, and the Lord saves me. Evening, morning, and noon I cry out in distress, and he hears my voice. He rescues me unharmed from the battle waged against me. Even though many oppose me, God, who is enthroned from old, who does not change, he will hear them and humble them, because they have no fear of God. My companion attacks his friends. He violates his covenant. His talk is smooth as butter, yet war is in his heart. His words are more soothing than oil, yet they are drawn swords. Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken. But you, God, will bring down the wicked into the pit of decay. The bloodthirsty and deceitful will not live out half their days. But as for me, I trust in you. You don't have to read far into that psalm to see that this is someone who is really having a bad time of it. In verse 2, my thoughts trouble me and I'm distraught. In verse 4, my heart is in anguish within me. In verse 5, fear and trembling have beset me. Now, maybe to you that sounds like poetic overstatement. But maybe they are words you can associate with. His mind is in turmoil. He just can't seem to concentrate on anything. Everybody seems to be against him. And in case you think this is all a case of overreaction by someone who is emotionally unstable anyway, it's worth remembering that this psalm was probably written by David, or at least inspired by him. The greatest of kings, a fearless soldier, a clever diplomat, faithful believer. Even he could be reduced to this state of anxiety and stress. But this psalm isn't just about the experience. Much more, it's about what to do next. If you do feel like this, how do you deal with it? I guess that for most of us, our initial reaction to experiences like this is to try to run away. Oh, that I had the wings of a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. But of course, whatever you do, you can't actually run away. Even if you could run off into the desert, anxieties have a habit of following you. And of course, in our current situation, wherever you run to, It's so hard to get away from COVID-19. He can't run away, but what he can do is pray. Listen to my prayer, O God. Do not ignore my plea. Hear me and answer me. This psalm is a prayer. Sometimes he's obviously speaking to God. Sometimes it seems more like he's just thinking out loud to God. But it's all focused on taking these emotions and bringing them to God. And we can bring our frustrations, our anxieties, our fears to the Lord, knowing that he understands. This psalm refers to David, but just think how true it was for Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. He took Peter, James and John along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death, he said to them. Do you ever wonder whether God really understands what you are going through? Oh, Jesus has been through it all. So when we feel anything but fine, we can bring our anxieties to a God who understands and who cares. And as we do that, as we express what is really in our hearts with all its pain and mess and confusion, God does meet with us. So in verse 22, cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken. God invites you to bring these things to him. Actually, of course, it would be nice if that verse said, cast your cares on the Lord and he will take them away. But no matter how you try to twist the words, you can't make it say that. The promise here is that as we bring our anxieties to the Lord, he helps us to cope with them. One of the few things that I can remember now from physics at school is that nature abhors a vacuum. If you want to get the air out of a bottle, it's useless to just try to suck it out. What you need to do is pump in another gas, which will then force the air out. And that's really what Psalm 55 does. It starts by acknowledging the troubles, the things that are causing this anxiety of heart. If it stopped there, what good would it do? So it doesn't stop with telling the Lord how we feel. It then helps us to shift our focus onto him. You see, when you do know the Lord, you can cast your care on him and allow him to fill your mind with himself. And as you do that, as you move from the trouble to the Lord, like the psalmist, you can move from the almost despair of verse 1. Listen to my prayer, O God, do not ignore my plea, hear me and answer me, to the hope of verse 23. But as for me, I trust in you. I think it is tempting in the sort of circumstances many of us find ourselves in at the moment to almost subconsciously treat God as a genie in a magic lamp. God's out there and we want him to sort of deal with our problems, to deal with our issues, to take away those things that are spoiling our lives, but we don't really worry too much about him. But that's not his plan. The message of this psalm is that the only hope is to allow God to come right into the situation so that his strength can sustain you. Maybe he will take away the problems. Maybe not. But much more important than that is knowing that you are in his arms. Cast your cares on the Lord and he will sustain you.